Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday, and today I have a very good story for you after the intro. Right off the bat, so I don't forget, what am I wearing today? Remember that crystal Hublot I had, the original one, the very first one they made? It was limited to 500 pieces. And guess what? I got another one, and I wouldn't pass up an opportunity to wear it. Again, I absolutely love this particular watch. I've showed you guys the second version, which has the black dial. This is still probably my favorite one. This is the big 45 millimeter. They did come out with a new one that's smaller. Probably be easier to wear on the wrist from somebody like myself, but this is the OG one, and I still love this particular watch. I do gotta tell you right off the bat, I had a client that's been looking for this one for a while, so probably by the time this video airs, this thing will be sold literally off my wrist. But let's move on to some questions. And I'm gonna start with what's a bit more like a story. You guys have been great about sharing a lot of your personal stuff with me and a lot of personal stories that are related to watches. I absolutely love that because within those stories you find old passions, newly found passions, history, and a lot of great things that are part of watch collecting and what makes watch collectors such as us a special breed of people. This email came from a gentleman named Benji, but his email address, it's Count Reginald von Hoobie-Doobie. I just found that to be entertaining. But hey Roman, thanks for stripping away the bullshit, teaching me that watches are true pieces of art, not only sometimes an investment. I never understood, and my 87-year-old father could never articulate why he maintained such a large watch collection. After remotely sharing and discussing your videos with him during quarantine, he says your message is spot on. His passion is now my passion. We talk daily about watches and about what it means to be a husband, father, leader, citizen, and a friend. Watches have brought us together and made our relationship stronger by making it easier to transition into talking about these difficult, awkward, but important topics. Every watch in his collection is represented an untold story, and that's now part of my life. You were instrumental with that, so I thank you and your entire production team. That's awesome. You almost find me say thanks whenever you guys write me a compliment, and that's the first thing I always say because I don't take those compliments lightly. It's not just an automatic thanks. And when I hear stuff like this and I say thank you, it's this really sings to me. I mean, the sentence alone that says watches have brought us together and made our relationship stronger, that to me is special. It's these trinkets, these expensive toys that we buy. They have power outside of being a status symbol or a mechanical wonder on your wrist, per se, right? My question, I'm trying to make my perfect 3-watch collection. For dress use, I recently purchased a Patek 5205 13G because it took my breath away, and I find myself staring at it constantly. For daily use, I wear a Rolex Daytona 116600. My dad gifted me when I graduated medical school 20 years ago, but criminally underappreciated. For my hopefully final purchase and weekend use, I have become enamored with proportions and colors of white gold rainbow Daytona. And Ian popped that up. I'm constantly debating the utility of the fuck you watch, since there's always someone out there with bigger, better, hotter watch, and I only want to buy what I like. The thought of wearing something more than some people's house frankly terrifies me. Like everyone else, I love the timeless appeal of Daytona, but I see one of them in every boardroom, racetrack, hospital, and office I go to. I want my weekend watch to stand out among the most popular watches of all time. Do you think the jewels of the rainbow destroy the aesthetic design compared to just a regular Daytona? Other than a plain Jane white gold wedding band, I don't own any jewelry, go clubbing, have a crew, or hang out in a country club. I can't sing, rap, dance, or act, but I just can't stop thinking I want the rainbow. I am a neophyte, and I don't want to get laughed at by fellow watch collectors or buy something gaudy. I've considered going vintage, but I don't understand the hype with Paul Newman's or seem to appreciate every dial color variation. What is your opinion on the watch? The only other watch I've considered is a platinum blue Guillaume MB&F Thunderdome, of which only 33 were made, making this unobtainable with either of these double as investments. Lastly, in one of your videos you mentioned before you started down this road, you worked at Deutsche Bank. I would love to hear the story of how you ended up where you are today. Keep up the great work, and thank you for educating and entertaining us newbies while we struggle through this time of social isolation with nothing more than Tiger King and Zoom happy hours. Benji. Okay, so I spoke to this gentleman. We exchanged a few more emails. My answer to Benji was simple, and I wrote to him, As far as the Rainbow Daytona, I told them I'm biased. I mentioned multiple times I like diamond watches and I wear them often. And I never buy them to impress anyone, but it would be lying if I said that every time I wear one, the show-off factor doesn't kick in. And I told them I'm also not going to get into comparison of Rolex versus Independence. The two are just too far apart. That makes sense. And I also said that I strongly feel that the current Independents are going to be the Paul Newmans by the time I, God willing, get to his father's age, right? Because again, it's such a small production. And a lot of the new watch collectors find appeal in them because they're so different. And majority of the innovations that take place in horology today are usually done by an independent watchmaker. Let's face it, it's something different made in small amounts. So 40, 50 years from now, I would imagine those are going to be the ones going through the roof. And on a Rainbow Daytona, you know, my clubbing days are over just the same, right? Although I was a clubber back in the day, but you won't find me in the club.
Bottle full of bub, mama, I got what you need if you need to feel the buzz.
As far as the Daytona is concerned, you know, pre-Corona, 270, 280. Today you can probably find one for 250, 260, slightly down. But again, it's not slightly down because of Corona, because of availability of items in the market. If there's a few available in the market, it'll go down slightly. When it's dry, it'll go up, right? And because it's such a small world, we know how many Rainbow Daytonas are actually out there for sale. So the Rainbow is holding strong. And I know of a Rainbow dating back to, I think, late 80s. There was a Rainbow made on a strap. I had a rainbow bezel and a full diamond dial. That watch sold over $1 million. It was a one-off, as I have been told. Didn't confirm that myself. So, you know, rainbows have a bright future in front of them, right? And there's a reason why everybody and their mother jumped on a bandwagon and started making rainbow watches after Rolex did it, right? It's funny, when I watch first was announced, the retail tag was set at like $83,000. My AD asked me, it's like, hey, you want to pre-order one with me at 20 off? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, that seems expensive, but you know, let's do it. Needless to say, I never received that Daytona because as they came out and the hype became real, they started trading at $125,000 to $150,000. That particular AD didn't exactly want to give me that watch at 20 back. I know, sucks. And of course, as I always preach, I went on and off and then showed this gentleman a couple of other watches in that $250,000 range just to sort of broaden his horizon in regards to what else $250K can buy you out there. You guys saw the Grand Comp that I showed on the show. I showed him that piece, you know, comparable in price. Of course, that sold to a different client. Nevertheless, you know, I always try, it's weird, like people ask me for a certain thing, and rather than say, okay, well, here you go, here's the price, I also give them other options. Dropping that kind of money, you really want to see what the other options are. And then Benji gave me a little bit of a background story in his family, which I found to be amazing, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I asked him if he doesn't mind. He said no, so I would like to share that with you. His father is an immigrant from the Philippines who moved to New York City in the 1960s, where he encountered systematic racism and discrimination because of his background, appearance, and a thick accent. After he became professionally successful, he was frustrated that he was never accepted into his peer group of wealthy physicians and wrongly thought that buying a Rolex would show his peers that he was one of them. He fell in love and purchased a yellow gold date with a lapis blue dial and a matching alligator strap. It didn't make him any friends or gain him any respect. He wore it daily for 40 years and told me it was his reminder that you're not what you own. And it reminded him that chasing respect of others is a fool's errand. He grew into his own and lived a life with a sense of purpose that earned respect instead of demanding it. Fast forward to last October, my mom was cleaning the bathroom drawers and found his old watch with a seized up movement, broken crystal, and a rotten strap having never been serviced. At the time, I wore the Sea Dweller he gave me for graduating medical school 20 years prior every day just because it looked expensive. I asked him about the watch and he shared the first of many stories that I have grown to treasure. I asked him why the watch was in such a state of despair, and he told me that it had died 10 years earlier, and his gray market dealer convinced him that this heirloom was beyond repair, not worth saving, so he should just buy a new watch, which he did. He put it in a drawer and forgot about it. I contacted my AD and arranged for Rolex to restore his watch to its former glory. He cried when I presented it to him last month, so he could wear it to his 50th medical school reunion. He has given me so much over the years and made me who I am today. I can't believe that if it hadn't been for a rotten, discarded, broken watch forgotten in the bathroom drawer, I would never have learned so much about my father and his life. His memory and health are fading fast, but holding each piece invigorates him and stimulates each memory, making it so clear that I feel like I was there. After servicing his collection, I bought my first piece of art, a Patek 520513. This is what I mentioned earlier, because it was so achingly gorgeous. Someday when my kids ask about why I bothered to wear a watch instead of using the latest disposable piece of consumer electronics, I will share a story of how it strengthened the bond that could be had between my dad and I by being a father, husband, friend, leader, and citizen. And this is why I started this conversation with the fact that sometimes watches can be a lot more than expensive toys, a lot more than a time-telling machine. Oftentimes, great stories and great bonds can't come out of being a watch owner. And last but not least, I'm gonna pop up a picture that Ben just sent me of the entire family. I hope you guys enjoyed this question / a little bit of a story. I talked to you guys before about haters and negative comments and things of that nature, and I never call anybody out, nor do I have a rebuttal. So and believe me, I have a sharp tongue. When you guys troll me, as they say today, or make fun of me, I can certainly come back with something fairly witty, but that's not what I choose to do. And I learned that a long time ago, that talking bad about someone, whether it's a pain in the ass client, a competition, or anybody else for that matter, only reflects bad on yourself. Honestly, if somebody's out there talking shit on someone, to me, the first thought that goes into my head is if they're talking behind somebody's back, to me, odds are when I'm not there, they're probably talking shit about me behind their back. So I practice what I preach, and I don't do that either. But there is one particular viewer, again, we're not going to mention his name, but he knows who he is, that purchased 2 Rolex Day green dials at a significant discount from, I'm gonna read this to you, because this is a message that I think came through on Facebook. I purchased 2 Rolex Day green dial at a significant discount from your website. I haven't heard anything. Can you tell me when I'll be receiving them? I know from your YouTube videos you're a man of your word and stand behind the products you sell. But I haven't heard anything about my watches. I'm traveling to Middle East currently, so you can text or email, let me know how to proceed or work something out. There was a pricing error on the website. Just to give you an idea, those Rolexes were priced, instead of $37,000, they were priced at $37. Obviously a clerical error, obviously a glitch in the content department. Somebody forgot to add a few zeros. But this gentleman apparently expected me to sell 2 Rolex Day dates for $37 a piece. To which we wrote, Robert, those orders were canceled. Your purchases were avoided due to a pricing error. Our apologies. And that's when Robert went on and said, why don't you stand by your pricing? Really? You didn't notify me until I asked. It appears Roman Sharf doesn't stand of what he puts on his website. Of course, we sent him out an email, and then payments have been refunded, and we can't really stand by technical errors. Back and forth, back and forth. He claimed he didn't receive an email. It is what it is. PayPal purchase said you had processed the order. Obviously, that order was processed automatically. And oddly enough, he paid something with PayPal, then a credit card, so one refund went to his PayPal, another one went to a credit card. And then it goes on and says, I don't want to escalate this, but I believe ethically and legally you have violated a purchase agreement. I didn't ask for a refund and lawful purchase of the watches from your website. And look, I'm happy to work out a different arrangement because mistakes can happen, but I also equally willing to pursue this as fraud on your part. Let me know how you want to proceed. We told him, listen, you're welcome to purchase the watch for $36,000 as it's correctly priced. Let me know which attorney you want me to work with, or I can just file in court since we can't work any other arrangement. Tell your boss we'll be in the courts to figure this out. Since we can't come to an agreement, I got nothing better to do. See you there. And a word of advice, hire someone more professional to update your website. Have a blessed day. Not one of my YouTube viewers wants to sue me because he purchased a day Rolex for $37, as if he didn't know that that's obviously a mistake. I don't think this is going to get to court, and if it ever does get to court, it will never make it because there's no purchase agreements, anything violated. My only concern to you is, do you honestly expect somebody like me to go out there and lose $36,000 twice over to fulfill a purchase on where I made a mistake, on where there was a technical error that happened or a typo, call it whatever you want? And why would you get out there and threaten me with lawsuits and saying that I violated some kind of a purchase agreement? How many times do you go on a website, order something, and it gets canceled because it was back ordered or an item is no longer available? It happens to us daily, right? Because we sell thousands of items. And we do have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of items. So these things can happen. But guys, don't be a pain in the ass like this guy. I mean, seriously, if you go on my website and you see a Rolex Date that normally trades for $37,000 and it's up there for $37, why would you go through the ropes of actually purchasing them twice over using a credit card and PayPal and then expect me to deliver this, right? And as far as hiring somebody more professional to update my website, I don't need to hire anybody more professional. When I hire my people, I get them to do what I want them to do, and I do have an acceptable margin of error in pretty much every task that happens in this office. And you know what? These things happen. But I just wanted to throw another story out there for you guys. Not a positive one like the last one, but I just found this story to be pretty funny, to be honest with you. Some people, as they say. Anyway, let's get to some actual questions, right? And the next question has come to me via a YouTube video, which is fairly unusual, to a gentleman by the name of Nick.
Hey Roman, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Wanted to do a video so you can put a face to the name. I obviously want to be a watch dealer. I want to be in the business. I really do. I just obviously don't have capital to start. Right now, I just got my first piece today to start it. I was selling Louis Vuitton on the side of my main job. I work at Walmart, hence the hat, full time. But I was selling Louis Vuitton on the side so I can afford a piece. I just bought today a Grand Seiko, the SBGN009. Full thing, box papers, manuals, hand tags, everything in excellent condition. I haven't wired yet. He's sending me the watch first because I have references because of the Louis Vuitton stuff. How do you set your margins on what you want to make on your watch? I mean, I'll just be straightforward with you because you'll be straightforward with me, and I know that. I ended up getting this for $2,200 shipped. The cheapest one I could find on the internet if I was to buy it as a buyer and not a dealer, $2,773. Like $500. It's like 17.8 something percent profit, gross profit margin. I don't know if 17% is good, if I should be trying to make more, because, obviously that's the lowest I found on the market. And I'm not in the watches, so I don't have a name for myself like Luxury Bazaar. Like, you can obviously raise it a little more. You could get more because of your trustability and brand recognition, and I don't have that. So I'm just trying to get a start, and wanted to ask how you get an idea of what you try to do for margin wise. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Videos are great.
So this kid, and I call him kid because he's a young gentleman, he's been hustling some Louis Vuitton things on the side. I actually talked about Louis Vuitton, how it resells. There's a lot of guys out there that resell Louis Vuitton. There's money to be made. And of course, Nick decided that he wanted to also get into a watch game, and he mentioned the particular Seiko, as you heard him. And his question was, what's an acceptable margin to make on that watch? He figured out that, based on what he bought the watch and what it's going to sell for, he's going to make about 17%. That's better than usual. However, on the cheaper watches, usually the margins tend to be larger. So when we sell fashion watches that are $100 to $250, the margins are bigger. And the reason for that is because otherwise it doesn't make financial sense. To make a 5% margin on an $8 watch, after your credit card fees and everything else, you're really not making anything. And you don't buy one $8 watch, you buy 1,000 $8 watches. So I hope that kind of makes sense. So the margin that he mentioned in his question is actually indeed great. So to go back to his question in regards to how we set our margins, it's not based on purchase price. It's based on what we feel the market is, the general market is. The majority of the watch business has become so transparent at this point that it's often hard to make more than regular margins unless you buy something much, much better. The way you do it is you buy things in bulk. You trade something out for items that cost you less. You take something that's super beat up and you invest money into it, but you buy it cheap enough to where you get it better than a regular margin. A lot of that stuff you can do with older watches or blind items, which nobody else has, limited editions and things of that nature. But for the most part, that margin still ends up being about that 10% margin. And to sit to tell you that there's a particular formula, I won't. Because again, it's all due to market knowledge, it's all due to years in the business, it's all knowing what this watch can actually sell for. Of course, the internet is a good gauge to, if everybody's selling this watch for $2,700, you don't want to be the guy selling it for $3,200. But you also have to be careful. You mentioned your watch is full with tags and this, that, and the other. Compare it to the other items online. Theirs as in nice condition and as complete. If yours is a lot more complete than the next guy, maybe you can put it up there for a couple of $100 more. But the one thing I wanted to tell you mainly is don't be the guy to lowball all the pricing online. There's a lot of guys that I've known over the years that their entire business model, again, it was a lot easier back then because there was a lot less of us, was to go through, look at his entire competition and make sure that his stuff is priced less than everybody else. And oftentimes the cheapest price is not the most attractive price. Oftentimes if you're cheaper than everybody else, it sort of raises an eyebrow. Well, why is this guy cheaper than everybody else, right? You want to be in line with your competition, because I've always said I prefer to work with my competition rather than against them. And it has taken me a long way. You don't want to be that guy online that's going to piss everybody else off, because somewhere down the line you're going to need another dealer. You're going to need to conversate with other dealers, buy things from them, sell things to them, create relationships with them. And if you're the lowballer online, you're never going to be liked. I'm not going to mention names. There was an infamous lowballer online that was just literally, his whole thing is that he would put prices down to a point where he wasn't making any margins at all. In fact, he was losing on some of the pieces. But his thing was, I want to get the client onto my website because I'm going to be the cheapest, and therefore I'm going to create a huge database of clientele, which I'm sure he did. But at the end of the day, he didn't make any money. So don't be a low baller. Don't be a high baller. Be in line with the market. Ensure that you do enough research of what you have prior to setting that particular price, and compare it to your competition out there in terms of how good your watch is versus theirs, and keep those prices in line. You also go on to mention that you don't have a name like Luxury Bazaar, so therefore somewhere like Luxury Bazaar, I can raise my prices a little bit higher, and people will pay me a couple of $100s more than someone they don't know, due to the warm and fuzzy feeling inside that they're not going to get a brick in the box, that I have a return policy, that I stand by my watches, that I warranty them, etc., etc., etc. That is true, but it's also not what we base our margins on. We do have a certain expense when it comes to servicing watches. And believe me, that number is way up there for the year. With servicing hundreds of watches a year, you can imagine even at my cost of servicing are a bit higher. But I take that into consideration on the buying end. And this is what you should do as well. If you're going to be out there buying pre-owned watches and you're going to see some watches a little bit beat up, A, get a connection where you can service and fix these watches, and B, figure out what those costs are. But rather than tacking those costs onto the end price to the consumer, I tried to tack it on to the buying end. So if I'm out there buying a watch and I know that watch needs a polish or a new strap, or I have to buy an additional box because it's missing its original box, I take all those costs into consideration on the buying end. If this is a watch that I would normally pay 10 grand for, and let's say sell it for 11 when all said and done, and I know this watch needs a new box, a polish, and a new strap, which is going to cost me about $1,000, then I'm not paying 10 grand for that watch. I'm paying 9. And this is the easiest way to do it. This way, you're still able to sell in line with the market. You're still able to make your average margin, but at the same token, you're not incurring the costs of what needs to be done to a watch to deliver a good product to a client. So I hope that makes sense as well. And at the end, Nick, I want to tell you one thing. First of all, I admire what you are doing. A lot of young kids get out there, they get a particular job, which they feel that they're stuck in. They do feel that it's not their career. It may not be the best job in the world, but nevertheless, they chug on and always look to do things on the side. I did the same thing, and I did this while I was in corporate world making a 6-figure salary at that point. I mean, I've worked since I was 13 years old, so I do have the work ethic. And I worked a multitude of jobs, obviously. But I do admire the side hustle, as you want to call it. And I also admire the fact you're putting thought in what you're doing. You figure out your gross margins. You figure out how to mark up your watches. You're asking all the right questions, right? This is the difference between somebody who's going to be successful versus somebody who's not. A lot of guys just jump in there, oh, I'm just going to buy and sell, not worry about anything, and blah, 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 just going to get in there. This is what it's selling online. I can buy it for this. And then they end up either not making any margin, not realizing that the prices online are slightly inflated, not realizing how important condition of the watch may be, how complete it is, et cetera, et cetera. They just kind of dive in and they just want to hustle, buy and sell, buy and sell. Hustling is not about buying and selling, and this is what a lot of people tend to make a mistake on. A lot of people do these side hustles, and it usually goes away within a year because they're realizing they're not really making, they're doing things without putting much thought into it, and it seems like you are. So I'm going to continue to tell you to stay on the same path, because putting thought into what you do, all while staying motivated, will take you a long way. And I'm pretty sure that it's only a matter of time until you move on to more pieces, bigger pieces, better margins, better buys, and more sales and clients. So thanks for this unusual question via video. I appreciate it, and I hope I helped you out somewhat. This Q&A is seemingly taking a theme of story time, but I can't not mention this, right? So this email was from Matthew. He goes as Cars and Watches on YouTube. Hey Roman, first and hope you and your family and colleagues are all safe and well. We are, and thank you. Wanted to say two huge thank you to you and the team. Like many, joined you the day producer Micah put your collaboration video out, and have now watched most, if not all, of your videos. Although I can't afford to have any of your amazing watches, I really enjoy seeing and hearing about the quality, history, timelines, and the market with all your no bullshit approach. So thank you for taking the time, and always make sure we have a video to watch. Also, big up Ian. I generally laugh out loud now at some of the editing stuff in the videos. Thanks. So my main reason for the email, I wanted to say thank you again. Some month ago, I commented on a video saying I had to sell my Omega Genève to help fund my wedding. Not expensive watch, but it was like a little piece of horological history. Since then, like a lot of your viewers, I imagine I've been dreaming of what watch I would buy if I came into some money. Long story short, I found myself with 10,000 pounds last week when a few things came together. Looking on your website and a few others, I had spent it in my head 1,000,000 times over, but every time I did, all I can think about is your voice saying two things. Watches are not an investment, they're an expensive toy. And also you commenting on your hatred of fake watches. Why is that important, you ask? Well, I should explain. Although I had 10,000 pounds in my bank, I was equally in as much credit card debt and had been for a very long time. Your comments made me realize there are more than one type of a fake watch, and that's the one you can't afford. I realized every time I wore that watch, it would be fake to me, as I simply couldn't afford it and would have no sense of achievement wearing it. I thought long and hard, and believe me, it was difficult, but thanks to you, I've now paid off my credit cards and I'm basically debt-free, which feels fantastic. I bought a used Gorilla watch for 260 pounds, a little stopgap until I can wear a watch bought from yourself, a luxury bazaar, with pride and a sense of achievement. So again, thank you for your time and excellent videos and the help you may not know you have given. I love this email, Matt. I love this email. One of the things I didn't actually mention when I talked about fake, that video where I busted up a bunch of fake watches, right? One of the things that I didn't say is a point that you brought up, and I wish I thought of it, as you said, because I agree with you 100%. I realized every time I wore a fake watch, it would be fake to me, as I simply couldn't afford it and would have no sense of achievement wearing it. That no sense of achievement is something I should have definitely added on top of everything else I said about fake watches, right? And your choice in regards to paying off your debt and being debt-free versus having a 10,000 or 10,000 pound watch on your wrist is also a very, very wise choice. You know, I told you guys, you know, buy what you like first and foremost within the means you can afford, right? Don't go running up your credit cards and buying these expensive toys. I've seen guys do that many times over and have to give the watches back, lose 20, 30% on what they bought just to pay their credit card bills. Don't do that. Be like Matt, right? And you know what? With you making a conscious decision to do the right thing and buying a cheaper watch to hold you over, which again, 260 pounds is still not that cheap to a lot of people out there, but by you making a responsible decision, and I have no doubt that in no time you'll make even more right financial decisions, and you get to a point where you can actually buy a real watch in that amount of money without breaking your own bank or running up your credit cards. So this episode is running very long. I'll take one more quick one before I get out of here from Yavan Naud. I hope I got your name correctly. And he says, to make things simple for Rolex and the gray market, why do they not have these ADs? Keep all the papers and warranty for a full year, and client will get them by mail, and a contact number if change of address with proof of same owner. This way, no brand new Rolex on the gray market at least a year old, and the AD will have to sell them to walk-in clients instead of making shady deals with these gray market buyers. I've been watching all your videos, and I love your noble attitude. Can't get caught telling the truth. Yeah, that's a good statement. You can't get caught telling the truth. You know, a lot of times I say, guys, a lot of times I've been accused of telling the same story over and over. You know, like repeating myself, especially as we get older, we tend to do that. My wife always makes fun of me. You know, like repeating myself, especially as we get older, we tend to do that. My wife always makes fun of me. A lot of times I've been accused of telling the same story over and over. But the one thing I've always said is that, you know what, if you note that every time I tell the story, whether it's for the 5th or the 50th time, it's the same exact story, so you know it must be true, right? So there are dealers out there already, ADs out there, that are holding their papers when they sell something to a retail client, right? The manufacturer does not do that. The manufacturer doesn't do that. Would be a logistical nightmare, but some of the ADs, especially in Europe, are already doing it. They're holding it for 6 months. They're holding it for years. I've heard some ADs holding these papers for a year, and what they're doing is trying to ensure that this actually ends up with the retail client and it doesn't go out on the gray market and get flipped over. These are actual legit real clients, because if you are a flipper and you go into an AD and you buy a GMT at retail and he doesn't give you papers, I've had multiple offers already from flippers, from these type of flippers that said, oh yeah, I have the watch, I can sell it to you now, but the papers are coming 6 months from now. And I told them no. Why? I told them no, because I'm not gonna take the risk of reselling this watch to a client and tell them the papers are coming in 6 months when I have a flipper and another AD behind me, right? If tomorrow that dealer goes out of business or decides not to give me that paperwork for whatever reason, I just screwed my client over. So yes, that does deter flipping, or not. Because if this AD is going directly to me, and this is an AD I do have a relationship with, and he says, listen, Roman, I got to hold this paper for 6 months, I still buy those particular watches, provided the market doesn't fluctuate, which is another catch-22. If I'm buying a bunch of GMTs or a bunch of steel Rolexes today where the market is XYZ, and in 6 months, I can't predict what's going to happen. They can go up, they can go down. It's a gamble. I tend not to gamble.
I'm doing excellent, actually.
In my business, I do not gamble. If I want to gamble, I'll go play blackjack at a casino. I do the same thing with currency when I purchase things in euros or Swiss francs or other currencies out there. I lock in contracts the day I make the deal. Yes, there were deals out there that were, let's say, for upwards of €1,000,000, and if I would have just waited another 3 days, I would have saved myself maybe $30,000, $40,000. I don't play that game because I could have just the same lost that $40,000. So same thing here. You got to sort of hedge your risk. Now, if this is if on some of these pieces the market is pretty steady, it's not a volatile timepiece like some of the hottest stuff, then yes, I can take the shot at it. But only if I know the authorized deals and know 100% that I'm going to get those particular papers. It does help a little bit. You know, what it does, it gets rid of the retail clients that pose as retail clients just to flip that watch that are not in business whatsoever, and the only reason they go in there is to try to flip that watch to a guy like me or anybody else for that matter. But for the most part, it still doesn't help. It just becomes a logistical nightmare, even for the AD. When I buy a Rolex from an AD, it already has a name on it. I try to either give him a name of like the potential client, or it just becomes a random name, because if a Rolex dealer gets caught with a watch out there with a blank card, he's screwed. He's going to lose the line. So yes and no, I guess, to answer your question. Hope that helps. Well, guys, that's it for me for today. It's been more of a storytelling episode with a few questions in between. Hope you enjoyed it. As usual, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel and are watching this. It means a lot to me. And last but not least, please don't forget to share this video with your friends, because this is what helps my channel grow organically. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.